I'd like to call the meeting of the University of Oregon Board of Trustees to order. I'm reading on my screen that my internet connection is, quote, unstable, so heads up. Angela, can you verify a quorum or do a roll call, one or the other?
I can see on my gallery view that we have a quorum. We have full attendance.
Great, thank you. Thank you everyone for being able to attend and participate today. The subject matter today, as you know, is the renaming of D.D. Hall, the consideration of the renaming of D.D. Hall. I hope I'm not the one creating that echo, but and this, I'll just remind us all that the board has the sole authority for the naming of buildings and external spaces. And while it may not say it explicitly, certainly the renaming or denaming of a building is perhaps an even greater responsibility and consideration for the board, and I'm sure you all recognize that. We have Angela has provided for public comment, and you have all received several rounds of public comment, including this morning, quite a lengthy set of public comments this morning. And I hope you've all had a chance to read those. I thought they were very interesting and informative. And you have in your packet, you have a copy of the letter that President Schill wrote, and President Schill will comment shortly in just a moment. And there is a resolution in your material that you've received, and I'm sure you've had a chance to look at it. So I think we'll just start. I guess one other thing, Angela, I asked you if you could just summarize. There were a lot of emails, some in support and some opposed. What was the rough percentage of each?
It's unfortunately, I don't have the percentage because there's a difference between the number of messages received and the total number of signatories. So I didn't want to be misleading with that. I would say of messages received, it was about 3/4 in favor of renaming and 1/4 opposed to renaming. But again, that support figure does not include hundreds of individuals who emailed either as an additional signatory on a letter that was submitted or emailed even before this meeting was scheduled in support of this and other actions. So overwhelmingly supportive, but there were opposed.
Okay, I think President Schill, why don't we turn it over to you to make your introduction and recommendation?
Okay, thank you, Chuck. And before I get started, I want to state clearly and strongly that Black lives do indeed matter, both to me as well as the University of Oregon. And as the horrific events of recent days sadly demonstrate, racists in our country still kill Black people and other people of color. Racism still affects virtually all aspects of human life. And this racism, despite the bloody battles of the Civil War, despite protections guaranteed by the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution, despite the hard-fought battles of the Civil Rights Movement, and despite more recent efforts of individuals and institutions to consciously promote diversity and inclusion, still continues. The protests in Eugene and across the globe demonstrate the need for us to acknowledge the death, pain, and racism that has been inflicted on our Black brothers and sisters, and to commit ourselves to education, listening, action, as well as transformation. Now, renaming D.D. Hall in making statements about our commitment to equity and inclusion does not change the need for the hard work that we are going to have to engage in to confront racism as a nation, as a state, and as a university, or as individuals. We must build upon the work, the University of Oregon must build upon the work that we began 4 years ago with the Black Student Task Force that led to the denaming of Dunn Hall, the opening of the Lily Reynolds Parker Black Cultural Center, the inclusion of Black sororities on campus, the African American Speaker Series, the increase in Black students and faculty on campus, implicit bias trainings, the creation of the Black Studies minor, and so much more. These are all important steps, but they're steps on a long road, and each need further nurturing in order to take root and thrive. We can't just begin things and then move on to the next. We have to make sure each one of these things that we started is successful and has impact. We have much more work to do to eradicate racism, to become anti-racist, and to explore new ways to support diversity and inclusion on campus. As a university, we can play a very important role in creating societal change. And it will take the effort of current and former students and future students, faculty and staff, to continue toward a path towards a better world. Now, turning to the issue at hand, I want to first thank Andrew Collis, Trustee Andrew Collis, for speaking his mind and from his heart on the issue at our last board meeting. Andrew, it took great courage for you to ask the board to consider this issue. I'm grateful to have a board in which every member is free, feels free to share their opinions without knowing how those opinions will be understood or appreciated. I also want to thank the students, faculty, staff, and community members, and especially the Black Student Task Force back in 2016, and others after them and before them, for bringing the concern about the name of Dee Dee Hall to our attention and helping me understand why putting the name of Matthew Dee in a place of honor on one of our oldest buildings is an affront to so many people. It is they who deserve the credit for ultimately getting us to this moment. Now, the board has no doubt read my recommendation to dename Dee Dee Hall and why I considered the decision I made following a long consultative process in 2016 and 2017. It's now apparent to me that as long as Matthew Dee's name remains in a place of honor on our campus, our Black students and other students of color will feel that they are not valued, that this institution is not their institution. So trustee action to remove Matthew Dee's name from our oldest and arguably our most prominent building will send a clear message to our Black students as well as our entire community that racism has no place in our academic community and that their welfare, inclusion, and success is central to our mission. Now, I'm mindful of another principle that could be weakened today by a vote of the board to remove Matthew Dee's name from Dee Dee Hall. And that principle is that we need to learn from history and not cover it up. We all need to be reminded that racism is insidious because it is embedded not just within the villains of history, but within people who do important things, like found a university or become federal court judges. We need to make sure that future generations, they know who Matthew Deedy was, a man who did great good for our state and our university, but also a man who supported causes and ideologies that were abhorrent. So to achieve that goal, as part of my recommendation to dename Deedy Hall, I will ask our faculty to create an appropriate learning experience on campus to describe Judge Deedy as well as his legacy. Now, I know that my recommendation to dename Deedy Hall will not be greeted with unanimous acclaim. People of goodwill may weigh the criteria differently from me or feel that my recommendation shows insufficient regard for the preservation of history as a vehicle for future generations to learn from the mistakes of the past and avoid them. In my view, we should respect those views even if we disagree with them. Finally, I also want to make note that we will take this moment to rethink other monuments on campus. Last year, we created a committee on organizing our diverse history, and I expect to get an initial recommendation from that committee soon about how to place in historical context our buildings, our art, and monuments on campus. I will expand that committee's charge to consider and make recommendations to me about whether some other pieces of sculpture should be removed. I'm also going to ask that committee, perhaps with some additional members, to complete their work during the 2020-21 academic year. And so with that, I offer to you, trustees, my recommendation to dename Deedy Hall and temporarily rename it as University Hall, while I identify a process for permanently renaming the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Before we ask for a motion, do any of the trustees want to make any comments? And before that, I should say, Connie Seeley, I know you're on, and I'm really sorry I didn't welcome you. Connie we're awaiting the Oregon Senate's final confirmation of Connie as a trustee, but she is on the call, and welcome, Connie. She will not vote, but she is on the call. Okay, are there any comments any trustees would like to make? Jennifer?
Thank you, Chuck. First, I'd like to thank the people who submitted public comments. I've read them and attended especially to those in opposition to the name change. I intend to vote in support of removing Matthew Deedy's name from the building. I believe this action neither eliminates nor rewrites history. It can neither erase Judge Deedy nor any of his actions. If anything, more people know his legacy now more than they did since the turn of the last century. But this action does add to the ever-evolving history of the University of Oregon, and it's an important symbol of the changes that we must effect to create an equitable and inclusive society. Thank you.
Any other trustees for a comment? Well, Catherine, are you on? I know you wanted to make a comment.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to make a brief comment to everyone here, kind of from this perspective of a student, to all of the other trustees. So first, I just want to say hello, fellow trustees and viewers. I want to briefly thank you all for the moment to speak to you today about the topic of renaming Deedy Hall. And I want everyone here for a moment to just focus solely on the students, faculty, and staff, and their feelings, emotions, and I would say opinions behind the subject. So first, I want to start off by saying that there is no reason why it would be acceptable to leave Matthew Deedy's name on the building. As someone who held racist views, he made several remarks against Black people, and as many have heard, he made aberrant remarks comparing Black people to cattle. His racist beliefs are an inherent part of his politics and morals, and we cannot just choose to separate what we want of Matthew Deedy and what we want of Deedy Hall to represent. His oppressive values have been known for over 50 years. I recently had a lady from the class of 1970 come and speak to me about how the renaming of Deedy Hall was talked during her time at the University of Oregon. To see that over the course of 50 years that there's been no significant improvement or change to the situation, and that people continue to speak up and are continuously ignored, is frustrating. And it is not supportive in any way of the students. The fact of the matter is that it's acceptable to continue to ignore issues that are not directly related to university operations. Even if we depend on Deedy Hall for donations or for support from other people from the University of Oregon, it is unacceptable to favor those individuals who support racist rhetoric and ideology over students who put their time, labor, and energy and money into advancing this university and supporting this university for the rest of their lives. Since receiving the Deedy and Dunn Hall report back in 2016 to 17, there have been a severe lack of action to rename Deedy Hall. While the information wasn't considered substantial enough to make a call to rename then, the information is present to us now. It was a disgrace of the university administration to not listen to calls from students, faculty, and staff back in 2017, but it is even more prevalent now. There's an increasing pressure from people outside the administration to make reforms to our university, especially the atmosphere around race and colonialism. Renaming Deedy Hall is not a singular instance where race intersects university interests of the university more so. For example, there's still a severe lack of action recognizing Oregon's past history of colonialism against Indigenous people, and that's left severe unresolved tension on our campus regarding a lot of our campusing on Kalapuya land. Naming a hall after a group does nothing long-term to help that community and support that community. We seem to use the naming of buildings as a form of solidarity. And so with that, if we do, then in this case, Deedy Hall needs to be instantly renamed because the students at the University of Oregon do not stand with solidarity with racism, oppression, or supremacy of any form. Leaving the name Deedy dishonors the university and continues to oppress students. No one wants to walk into a building known as named after a man who did not value or respect them due to their skin color or any other demographic. Oregon has had a racist history that is often not educated about in our education system and lacks the transparency necessary to create a more diverse community. We cannot continue to expect Black, Indigenous, or any other people of color to continue to combat racism alone. The university administration needs to do more when it comes to the safety and well-being of these groups, especially those who also identify within the LGBTQ community. The fourth step towards showing minority communities that we care about them is to rename Deedy Hall today. We cannot continue to delay a process that oppresses students and damages their self-esteem. We cannot continue to promote student success, yet leave a racist man's name on a building that is meant to inspire them. We should not want any of our students to inspire to be Matthew Deedy. We cannot let individuals alone in this UO community find racism, slavery, or oppression okay, let alone the wider community of Oregon or the United States. It is unacceptable as we continue to watch countless Black people die for unwarranted violence. Deedy did not protect Black people in his service as a judge or later as a justice for Oregon. He worked against them continuously in his policies. We need to stand in solidarity with Black students, not just during these events and this time, but 24/7. It is a job of the university to satisfy the needs of the students, and at this point, without renaming Deedy Hall, I'm unsure if we were fulfilling that standard. I urge you all to reassess the name of the hall and specifically why we leave it as Deedy Hall, and I hope and I urge you to vote for renaming the hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Any other trustees want to make a remark before we move forward?
Chuck, Mary has her hand up.
Mary, was that you, Mary Wilcox?
Yeah, thank you, Chuck, and I will be very brief. I just want to thank both Andrew and President Schill for giving us this opportunity today. As President Schill said, it's a long road ahead for us to try to come close to erasing the racial injustices that have happened. But today is an important step. And as a fiduciary of this university, I feel very honored to have the opportunity to vote on this resolution. So I know in the past this issue was not brought to our attention. And so I just wanted to make sure and let President Schill and Andrew know how much I appreciate this opportunity today. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Any other comments from trustees?
Joe has.
Yeah, I would echo what has been said today and thank President Schill for his leadership and for Andrew Quillis, our fellow trustee and friend, for continuing to educate us. When we voted on this previously, I was swayed by one of our local leaders, Dr. Ed Coleman, who looked at Matthew Deede's whole body of work, and I reread his comments and the findings and thought differently in these changing times. And for Andrew and all of our Black community, my sincere apologies for what you've been living through in these recent weeks. And I hope this step today will be one small step where we think globally and act locally and make a meaningful change here at the University of Oregon.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move forward?
Chuck, I just have a brief comment in support of everyone who has spoken up. And I think it's really important to not maintain the status quo, because if we maintain the status quo in an ever-evolving world, we regress. And we cannot afford as a university to take a step backward. We need to take many, many steps forward as swiftly as we can. And so I too am grateful to Andrew and to my colleagues on the board and to President Schill for allowing us to have this conversation and make this important decision today.
Thank you. Any others?
I'd like to make one comment. First of all, I want to thank President Schill, Chair Lillis, all my fellow trustee members for your support during this time. It's very much appreciated. And then I'd like to say that everything that I do is all about the next generation. So I take my responsibility on any board that I sit on as far as being a leader to make the world a better place for kids that aren't here right now. And I think this is an opportunity for us. I've appreciated everybody listening. I've appreciated everybody wanting to understand. And then I appreciate the fact that we're taking decisive action today in coming to a vote. But we all have to remember the reason we do this work is to create a better opportunity for the next generation of youth that'll come after us. And I take it very seriously. And I hope that today's decision marks a big step forward for the University of Oregon as far as our leadership within the academic community. And I look forward to continuing to serve with each and every one of you who I, like I said before, consider to be my friends. So thank you very much for taking this action, and look forward to a positive year of service with all of you.
Chuck, it's Marcia. I have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead, Marcia.
First of all, Andrew, thank you for that and for your courage. And President Schill, when will the report be done on the other studies that are happening? When should we expect that as trustees?
So,
Hold on.
okay, so the work of the committee, there's an interim report that's actually I'm looking at very shortly, but the more expanded work that the committee is going to do, I need to charge it, and it'll be done by the end of this school year. And that will look beyond the original charge to the committee was to add things to the campus, to contextualize things on campus. This next work will be to look on campus and see if there are things that need to be removed as well as added to the university. There's also aspects of this which the interim report has information about, is how we can add both to our curriculum, how can we add to how we act as a community to recognize our different cultures. And so that's work that we can be doing ongoing. And that doesn't need the board to vote yes or no, and that's just things that we can do as a university. There's other work that the university will be doing, and this isn't just sort of saying, okay, we took Deede's name off and we're going to leave it at that. I'll mention two other sets of work that we're going to do. I know the provost and I have had a number of conversations about how we can embed in our academic program, in our hiring, in our retention efforts, increasing representation for Black faculty and students, as well as academic programs. That work will be ongoing over the summer and then into the school year. And then secondly, I've asked Andrew to work with us to come up with, lead a group of stakeholders at the university to come up with ideas and advise me on additional steps that might not be academic, but that might be co-curricular, that might be ways in which mentorship, that may be job opportunities, as well as other types of ways in which we can make the university more inclusive with respect to our African American students.
Thank you. And then for those of us that weren't on the board, they haven't been on the board for the full time, I wonder if there might be an opportunity sometime in the fall or winter to review the proposal from the Black students and to get an update on progress towards the list, what was agreed to, and the progress that we've made, and then the progress that we want to achieve in the future.
Yes, absolutely. We have the list that we got was from a group of, we don't know who actually submitted it, but we're going to continue working on some of that and try to find stakeholders to talk with about them.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments from a trustee? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to support the resolution?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any final comment before we vote? You've all have had the resolution in front of you for some time, so I won't go through that. But Angela, I think we probably should do a roll call vote.
Okay. I will go alphabetically. Marcia Aaron,
Yes.
Connie Ballmer,
Yes.
Peter Bragdon,
Yes.
Andrew Colas,
Yes.
Alan Ford,
Yes.
Joe Gagne,
Yes.
Elisa Horniker,
Yes.
Ross Carey. Ross is on mute.
Yes, and I'd just like to add my thanks to Andrew for bringing this back to our attention.
Chair Lillis,
Yes.
Laura Lee McIntyre,
Yes.
Jimmy Murray,
Yes.
Geneva Ralph,
Yes.
Mary Wilcox,
Yes.
Catherine Wishna.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Motion carries. I don't think we have any other business for today. I'm sure that we couldn't do it legally anyway, so we'll be adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your participation, and take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.